Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Into Deep podcast. I am excited to introduce you today, Mr. Matt Cogin. Matt is a coach. He deals specifically with young teens and adolescents, teaching them to improve their self-confidence, their emotional intelligence, improve their public speaking skills, all that good stuff that you want our little humans to be, growing up in the world to be. And welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you for having me. Pumped to be here.
So as a parent of two young children, I've been watching what Matt has been doing with his clients, and I'm super impressed with the results. And basically, they're 3 and 5, but as soon as they're old enough, I'm going to be enrolling them into Matt's coaching, because this is stuff that, this is the bread and butter stuff that I want my children to be learning, that Matt is teaching. So he's out there at the forefront. And while it's specifically, he deals with teens and young adults, this stuff is transferable to people of all ages. So I'm super excited to delve a little bit more. First question I like to ask all of my guests is, I can give you a little bit of an intro, but I want you to tell the people straight from the horse's mouth, who is Matt Cogin?
Matt Cogin has recently become a father to a beautiful 7-month-old daughter, Chloe. Who is Matt Cogin? What a great question to start. I wear many different hats. I've got a beautiful partner. I, as you said, coach. I facilitate workshops. I love surfing. I love anything that's sort of pushing the envelope and a little bit risky at times, whether it's cliff jumping, spearfishing, and different things. But I guess the last few years I've been on a huge journey of personal and professional development. And if I think back throughout my story, the good, the bad, the ugly, it's been a massive evolution to get to where I'm at now. And I think leveling up was born as a result of that. And that's become a big part of, I think, who I am. It's really special and I think quite unique to be able to blend something that comes, something that I love, something that I feel like I'm pretty good at, and something that really matters. I feel like it's really important, and to be able to call that work or a calling or a bit of a career. So I guess wrapping up in that question, that's a little bit about who I am and what I do.
Okay, I love that, Matt. And so that sort of leads onto my next question. How did you land to where you are today? Coaching and doing what you love. Tell us the story about how you got here.
I was, I'd say 23, 24. And my partner at the time was a psychologist. My mum is an amazing counselor. And I was thinking of pursuing one of those two paths. But having gone through a large breakup a few months prior, there was a part of me wanting to explore. I don't know if I want to delve into the depths of people's story and hurt. And there's times where that will come to play. But listening to a few amazing speakers, Les Brown, a bit of Tony Robbins, there was something about coaching that I found really incredible. Even the meaning of coaching. I've heard it said that you get into a horse and cart, and that will take you to where you need to be. And in many ways, a coach serves as a bit of that role. But then I think of my speaking career, which sort of kicked off when I was about 19. I'm 33 now. And it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks after my 19th birthday. I'd turned my life around from pretty colourful teenage years. We might explore that soon. And pretty quickly got asked to come and speak in high schools and then juvenile jails and a conference up in Queensland, then over in New Zealand, and then sort of 14 countries later. It's been this amazing journey. And I think I learned through that process, keynote speaking. It was probably through a couple of my jobs that I really learned facilitation, which is an amazing skill to have when working with groups. And coaching was the final sort of thing that I built into that.
Okay, I love that. And so you mentioned teenage years, and we spoke a little bit about this off camera. So tell us about your teenage years and so the struggles you went through and how you ended up landing on your feet.
Yeah, if I kick off in my first year of high school, I went to an all boys high school. It was a lot of fun, heaps of testosterone there. It was pretty wild, pretty rough in Randwick, and I'd say at that time felt like a pretty normal kid watching Cheese TV before school to watch Dragon Ball Z.
Bit of rage as well.
A bit of rage. I'm trying to think what else. Like had my first Motorola Razr, which felt like a huge deal, and the iPods or this MP3.
Yeah, the 3310 with Snake. You remember?
Yeah, yeah.
Snake,
Or Bounce.
Snake 2, yeah. I can't remember recall Bounce, mate, but Snake, yeah.
Great games. And went to, my parents really valued travel, and it's a big part of my life. We went to Bali at a young age. I come back and I saved up all my pocket money to buy these things that some of the younger listeners may not even know what they are these days, but called DVDs. And came back and started my first business. It was called MCDS, Matt Cogin's DVD service. And I started hustling DVDs on the playground.
Yep.
And made a killing in my first week and thought, hey, I'm pretty good at this. And I struggled a bit academically. I had to work pretty hard to be a fairly average student, but excelled a lot in the sporting field and excelled, I'd say, quite a bit with connecting with different people and spent a lot of my lunch times, recesses, just chatting, mixing through all different groups. And then it was probably around 14. The dream at the time was to play for Rabbitohs one day, maybe be a big wave surfer or a stuntman. And around 14, I made junior bunnies, or 13 for the first time. And it wasn't long after that I found out I could make way more money selling drugs than I could selling DVDs, and sat in front of a judge for the first time at 14. And my parents gave me this ultimatum saying, Matt, if you want to keep selling drugs, you're not welcome to stay here. And look, I was probably listening to way too much Tupac and Biggie Smalls and watching too many gangster movies, but thought at 14 I was a grown up, you know, and moved out of home for the first time. And that was the start of a pretty unique, I'd say, teenage years. Sort of by 15, when I was back at school, I'd be getting picked up by a full-time driver who would go and do the drug run all sort of through the eastern suburbs, and grew up with a lot of the boys down Maroubra Beach, which was pretty colourful. And that life came to a bit of a crescendo at around 18, and a close call of overdosing, close call of going to prison for quite a while. A massive motorbike crash where I just missed hitting a pole and getting run over by a car. And I started to think, if I'm a cat, I've definitely used all 9 lives. It's probably time to shift and get out of this life. And that's summing up quite a few years into a little a snippet, but it was pretty tricky. And I think through those years, seeing the impact it had on my younger brother, seeing the impact it had on my 2 beautiful parents, leaving a train wreck of relationships behind me, and having this moment one day, I was hired out this hotel or this penthouse, and there was a huge part within me craving validation. And being up there, and I had the gold ring, the gold bracelet, the gold necklace, the motorbike downstairs, too much money in my wallet to know what to do with it. And having all these older boys that I'd idolized when I was younger around me at this sort of party or this event that I was holding, saying like, Matty, you're killing it. You've got it all. And I remember walking in and had a massive sort of full-blown cocaine addiction at this time. And I walked into the bathroom to have a bump, closed the door, looked myself in the eyes and just thought like, for what? Like, is this it? Because this is the life I thought would give me joy and happiness, but I'm empty. I'm craving so much more. And I've heard a lot of people to get here. And it was around that time, with the mix of those other 3 moments that I told you about, is what sort of shifted my life or started to change the trajectory I was on.
Okay. And so what was there ones, you said that moment you looked in the mirror and go, what is this all for? What happened from there?
Well, the only life I'd really known for a lot of parts had been somewhat being a criminal, making money, partying every weekend, and to try to shift and turn away from that life was pretty hard. To have to then settle for a job where I was getting paid a quarter or a fifth what I was making sort of each week. But there was a strong decision: if I don't do this now, I'm going to be in jail, I'm going to lose my mind, or I'm going to probably be 6 foot under. And initially there was a decision of saying to a lot of my mates, hey, I can't keep coming out to the clubs and the pubs. Changing. I had a girlfriend at the time she was really supportive of the process. But mate, it was actually probably the hardest thing that I've done, stepping away from that life. There was no repercussions or anything, but just trying to change my life, change some habits that was destroying me and the people around about me. But that was the point in my life where I learned this really powerful lesson that I carry through everything I do now, is that you can recreate your life in any moment. Just because like the pen is in your hand and you're the author of your story. And it was a bit of a sand in the line moment for me of saying, I can keep going down this path and this is where it's leading, or I can make some radical changes. And a lot of that looked like shifting some of the people that I was hanging out with or what I was doing in my time how I was spending my money, and seeking out some really amazing mentors, shifting the music that I was listening to, changing and finding some new hobbies and a range of other things were some of the stepping stones out.
If you can give some advice to people listening who might want to, quick change the trajectory of their life, what would that be?
I've heard someone say we spend more time planning our next holiday than we do over the next 3-5 years of our life. And I think for someone listening to this that wants to shift your life for a moment, you might be listening to this in the gym or in a car, but like pause and think, what do you want your future to be? If you could imagine something like incredible in 3 to 5 years, what would life look like? When you wake up, would you have debt in your bank account? Would you be waking up next to someone that you love in a respectful, honest relationship that you cherish? If you're a parent, what sort of parent would you be? What do you want to be? And I think setting some big, ambitious goals initially. And then it's like, how do I work towards these goals to be able to have that life and be doing and have those things that I want? And then I think that's some incremental changes. If you need to lose some weight, get to the gym, start eating right. But find what's been really helpful for me is finding mentors or coaches that can help get me there, and having a few friends around about me that I can lean on during those times. And then I would say too, look at, and this is probably one of the hardest things I've had to do multiple times through my life, you have to sort of get under the hood and see what's going on. And for me, if I'm craving validation from other people, that's why I'm doing some of these things that I'm doing. Until I deal with that, this is going to keep popping up in other areas of my life, and it did until I sort of addressed that. I don't think I've fully nailed it, but I would say to the people, like for me, seeing a therapist for the first time was one of the hardest things, but one of the best things that I did. And addressing a lot of those things that happened when I was a kid and why I was acting the way that I did. That'd be some of my recommendations.
Yeah, it's a constant work in progress. And from what it sounds like, you're kind of recommending they reverse engineer, figure out where you want to go first. And a pretty common personal development technique. I think the first time I did this was at one of Tony Robbins's events, probably like circa 2015, Unleash the Power Within. He gets you to write down, like, what does your perfect day look like? Like, who are you with? What are you doing? What sort of work are you doing? Who are you spending time with? And then figuring that out and then reverse engineering, what do I need to do to make that happen? So really getting clear on what you want out of life, where you want to go. That's a huge one. So tell me, what is the favorite thing about your job, Matt?
I think building off what you just said there, I've been thinking a lot about leveling up and what is it, and what's our secret sauce to what we do. And the first part is wanting to inspire young people, young adults, even people listening to this podcast now, to dream bigger and find a really compelling why of what do I want to do, who do I want to be, what do I want to become, and what do I want to have. And I think somewhere along the way in our lives, often we settle for mediocrity. We settle like, this is good enough. And we get super comfortable within our zones of, these are the things that I can do. And these beliefs seep in of, this is what I can and can't do. I can't learn the piano. I can't learn how to edit reels. I can't learn how to be a better husband, wife, spouse, father, mother, whatever it might be. And then we sort of settle. So I think what I love most about my job is I get to play this small part as a conduit at times to see a culture shift within a group, real genuine behavior change happen. I get to share stories of the ups and downs and different parts of my life in such a way that it seems to resonate and connect with young people. What I love most about my job is when like young people get a chance to find their confidence, find their spark. Seeing someone that walks into a workshop for the first time of a program that I'm running with their shoulders sort of down, looking at the ground, barely can project their voice to say hello, weak handshake, in 5 sessions time, come in and just look like they're owning the room. They've got this presence about them. There's this confidence they've found, and there's been this unlock within. Being able to do that for individuals and groups, mate, it's pretty bloody special.
Yeah, man. And I've seen some of the amazing results and the things you're showing on social media. So is there anything parents can do? Because obviously I'm a parent and there might be some parents listening. Is there anything parents can do with their children in raising them? What would you recommend they can do to raise, more confident, more resilient children?
I actually did a post on this recently, and I might fire off some of those things. One, I would say, especially working with a lot of teenagers at a time where teens are seeking their autonomy, they're pushing away from the family unit, they've got a huge influx of hormones flowing through their body. There's this part of, hey, who am I outside the family unit? Who am I in the noise of social media? And I think for parents to get around, especially if I can say to dads, give them a kiss and cuddle. There's so many kids that I speak to, I've never heard their parents say that they love them. Kids that I speak to, I feel like the reason their parents broke up is because of them. Kids that I've spoken to, even this beautiful youngster who's in year 12 and she was in the prefect body of her school, felt it was her fault because she was unwell as a kid and all the emphasis was put on her. And I think young people carry around a lot of weight. So for parents, having some open dialogue at times, being able to flex and have range and show a bit of emotion with your kids, what they're going through. But I would also say leave a Post-it note in there on a textbook, inside a book, in maybe if you're making them lunch, just let them know what they mean to you. Maybe something that you're proud of, something that you've seen within them. Rather than solving all of your teens or children's problems, ask them some questions and so quickly as parents. And I can find myself already wanting to do this with Chloe. We want to jump in and solve it for them rather than empowering them with the skills to solve their own problems. And I think if you model that you are still learning, that you're not the finished product, that you still have a desire to grow and to learn and to level up, they catch that. They catch that too. Be quick to forgive and be able to say that you're sorry. And in many ways, the values, maybe even the habits that you want to instill in your children, model them yourself.
Yeah, because they're always watching, right?
They're always watching.
Do as I say, not as I do, they say sometimes. Another big one I see a lot, and I would just want to know if you agree on this one. Like, instead of praising the end result, i.e. you won this, you didn't win this, praise the effort they're putting in. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? So instead of praise the hard work they're doing, not necessarily the end result.
That's probably my biggest takeaway of Carol Dweck's book, like around growth mindset. And I'd say for all parents, I'd highly recommend that book. But yeah, definitely. Rather than, I'm thinking I get to work with some pretty incredible young people, ducks in their school, first or second in Australia for their respective sports, and they're just absolutely killing it. But at times there's such a pressure to perform, and my worth is attached to how good I am and how well I can do a particular thing. And if I'm not doing that, then who am I? And I speak to many young people where it feels like their worth's dependent upon the results that they get versus the effort that they put in. So I'd highly recommend, for example, I was speaking to a mum last week whose son studied his heart out for year 11 geography, and he got back a pretty average result and he was devastated. And I think if it's purely about the result, and just anyone listening to this, I don't think the be all, the end all is your ATAR result. It can help, but there's so many other ways. I'm embarrassed to say what I got for mine. But I've been able to create a really amazing life. And I think for young people, there's a real pressure that I need to perform. But for that mum, being able to say to him, hey, you've put in the time and effort. Let's figure out a different strategy because something here is not working, and maybe it's your style of study, rather than, hey, I've done really well because I got an amazing result, or I am bad because I didn't get the result that I wanted.
Yeah. Well, that's funny because I remember back in the day at uni, I struggled so much with finance, not good with numbers, studied my absolute ass off and only got 50%. And at the time I beat myself. I'm like, fuck, I only got 50, studied so hard. But looking back, I'm actually proud of like even getting 50 because I really, really struggled with numbers at the time. So next question. So I wanted to talk a little bit about schooling. How have schools evolved, either good or bad, that you've seen compared to when we were at school? someone who was in their 30s in high school? How are schools doing? Are they doing a better job, a worse job? How are things looking?
Look, I think I wasn't really at school when I was younger. Like I was there sort of to check in, but often as soon as I check in, I jump the fence and I take off and be out for the day. But one thing I have noticed, even just discussions around mental health, mental well-being, and that was something when I was younger. And there's some amazing programs out there, and I had the privilege to work for, like, for example, Tomorrow Man, Tomorrow Woman. But I know there's a range of different services that will go in now in schools, but even wellbeing departments that are running some great initiatives within schools. Knox Grammar, I think what they're doing, Ravenswood School for Girls, where I got to spend a lot of time and do a lot of work, they're doing something right. Pos Ed, there's a big push around that right now. Having more of a student-led approach.
What's Pos Ed real quick?
Positive education. And I think also being able to apply positive sort of psychology. Martin Silliman, if I've got that right, a lot of his work, and seeing some of the schools that build that in and more of a growth mindset, like what we're talking before, in their students, and have that layered through their curriculum, their mentoring sort of sessions, pastoral sessions. They're things I don't really remember doing at school.
There was nothing like that back in the day, I don't think, mate. So, like, when you say Pos Ed, are these like subjects, or are these like a way of teaching? What does that actually look like within the schools?
I think all schools are different, but for this particular school that I'm thinking of, let's go with Ravenswood and Knox. They have something called a student-led wellbeing conference that they put together. They invite maybe 30, 40, 50 schools from around Australia, where each of those schools will send maybe the school captain or 6 sort of delegates or ambassadors. And it's looking at how can you have more of a student-led approach to wellbeing and helping young people sort of thrive within their schools, teaching them about gratitude, teaching them how to communicate effectively, teaching young people how to set ambitious sort of goals and to go after them, teaching young people how to sort of conversate and open up when needed, but also having points of call throughout the school for young people to check in that are struggling. That's what comes to mind for now.
Yeah. Is there anything you think these schools can be doing better?
Of those 2 schools that I mentioned, I think they're really nailing it. And what I must say too about those 2 particular schools is there's a big emphasis of continuous improvement. They haven't cracked the final piece, but they're really working towards it. And being able to just see at times, and having spoken in hundreds of schools throughout Australia, you see the difference at times between the students, their confidence, their sassiness, their intellect, and helping build really well-rounded young people. And sometimes I must say too, these 2 particular schools are incredibly privileged in the upper echelons, and to be able to afford to go to schools like this. But then I've also worked with schools throughout Australia where you can see the young people I wouldn't say they're thriving. Some of them are sort of there and they're just getting through.
Yeah. So you think systematically there's still a long way to go for Australia in general?
I would say too, from the education point of view, I'm in classes at times too with year 9 students that I've been told they're super disengaged. I'm working with 180 year 9 students. I've been told that there's a group within there of about 30 or 40 that are causing all the issues within the year group. Teachers are finding it really hard to manage their behaviours. And these are the same 30 or 40 boys that will stay back for the whole lunch break wanting to ask me questions. Hey, Matt, how do we deal with cutting down watching porn? Hey, Matt, I want to start my first business, but I'm not sure what to do. Hey, Matt, I've got this girl I really like, but I don't know how to speak to her. Hey, Matt, and the questions sort of go on. And they've said to me, why do we have to go and learn about these topics that we're not interested at all? Like, there's so many things that we are interested in, and this push with young people, and I think it's quite interesting at the moment. Everyone wants to be a little hustler. It's like, if you don't have a side hustle, there's something wrong with you. If you're not drop shipping, or if you're not having this sort of business that you've helped create, it's like you're somewhat lesser than. And I'm hearing that at times where boys it's almost this push to grow up and hurry up and be 18, 19 and 20, and I can resonate with that. But that for a lot of boys is what they're really interested in. And then when you fuse, for example, these students that I'm talking about, the so-called ringleader, was so taken by the workshop that he's like, hey, how do I like, can you mentor me? And I said, look, here's a challenge. I'm coming back in a few months. I want you to read these books, prepare a 5-minute session, and I'm going to give you a chance to open up the next workshop. This is the ringleader for the kid that's most disengaged. 3 months later, he's read 2 thick books that I gave him. One was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And the second was An Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. That's a hard read. He'd read both books, prepared a 5-minute message, was there to meet me 5 minutes before the workshop began, and nailed this speech in front of his classmates. Not only that, but he'd chosen to sit at the front of the class. He takes notes. He apologized to a few of the teachers for how he'd been showing up. He had a different relationship with his parents, and his maturity is absolutely next level. And I got an email from him again sort of a few months ago just sharing how well he's doing. So I think for some, what I would say for some schools, there's one thing for teachers to really know their content and be very astute in their particular body of knowledge. But I think and this is why I'm so passionate about communication, if you don't know how to deliver that and engage with a group of teenagers and you're semi-checked out yourself, if you're not inspired by what you're teaching, how can you expect your sessions to be inspiring or engaging? So that would be some feedback to teachers.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For any teachers listening, you want to be inspirational with what you do.
And we appreciate you teachers.
I
think it's a hard slog. We've got many great mates.
It's one of the most important jobs that we have on planet Earth, mate. So I've been watching your social media and seeing some of the things you do to help young people improve their self-confidence. I wanted you to sort of let's talk a little bit about it. So I've seen, you do these scavenger hunts in the city. You go out and teach them to be little hustlers, right? You go out and you get them to, get some money off a stranger, get, how to read a map, all this sort of stuff. So delve a little bit more on some tactics that you use to build self-confidence and some stuff that even adults can use as well to be more outgoing and, get more of what they want out of life.
Yeah. So I think what you're referring there is it's a program I built called Unlocking Your Potential. And there's certain limitations that I have within schools of what I can deliver. But for these particular students that I've run these programs for, it's off the back of 10 2-hour sessions that I've delivered in their school. It's often opt-in by parents and students. And the first module of 5 2-hour workshops really focuses on improving communication skills. How do you conversate effectively? How do you ask great questions to someone? How do you actively listen? How do you have a bit of flex in your ability to communicate? Can you be authentic? Can you come across as confident? Can you command a room? Noticing how do you want your personal branding to be? How do you see yourself? How will other people see you? How do you want to be seen? Thinking about that. How do you craft an unforgettable message and improvise when needed? And that builds all the way through to these students delivering a 5-minute TED Talk or 3 to 5 minute TED Talk. And they nail it. We look at body language, eye contact. How do you master first impressions and a range of these different things? Engage a room. Get really clear on your style of communication. From there, the advanced program is all around how do you build a professional network? And in that, it's how do you identify high-value mentors that can help you fast-track your career, your success, whatever it might be. And I'm a big believer of success leaves clues. So how, as young people, do we start to step outside your comfort zone? A big part of the program is always this. How do we push you outside your comfort zone or expand what was previously maybe fear zone into your comfort zone? And then also build the capability within you to access courage when you need to by doing hard things. And I think leveling up, a key part of that is, hey, do hard things, choose hard options. Because if you always opt in for the easy option, life gets pretty hard. But if you can consistently lean in and do difficult things, then life gets pretty easy and exciting. So through this program, students are learning how to identify different personalities. They're learning how to have difficult conversations. And then where we pick up and you talk about the scavenger hunt, off the back of that, and they've gone and then they sit down and have a 1-hour meeting with these mentors. And it's amazing the range of people that these students reach out to: surgeons, CEOs, founders, diplomats, someone that looked after the head of security for the vice president of America. They get access to these amazing people from reaching out. And then Unlocking Your Potential comes in, and it's looking at how do we continue to deepen and expand on these skills. And what you talk about, the hunt around the city, is they're giving a range of different activities. Go and get a few dollars off a stranger, use that money to then go and negotiate a discount. How do you come up to a stranger and have a conversation with them? Give a compliment, a genuine compliment, not just your dress looks amazing, but walking past a couple, hey, you look really in love, and I want to say it's really refreshing to see. How as a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old young man or woman do you do that? And I think as they go out and face and navigate rejection, and then learn different and adapt and learn different styles to get cut through, that's pretty special to see for young people. We run ice baths, we do breath work. We have events where we'll hire out a restaurant and have a range of different mentors come where they can prepare and ask different questions. They love those sort of things. We have different like Shark Tank things where they might come up with a bit of an idea, an app, an activity, and then they get a chance to pitch it. So I think for parents wanting to do some of these things, I would be looking at how you convince them to do it's a whole different thing. But thinking about ways outside the box to build particular skills in your child that will help them thrive in their future. And I could probably think of a handful of skills that I'd be really recommending parents to think about cultivating if they haven't already.
And what sort of skills?
Communication.
Yeah.
LinkedIn last 2 years, number one thing that employees are looking for is communication skills. Yet we've got a generation coming through where telephobia is a real thing. I was speaking to a few HR professionals where they said, Matt, we actually have to write in the job description, we'll make and take phone calls because there's a fear around, hey, I'm just used to texting and I swipe. I don't even have to go out and speak to someone if I want to go and meet with someone. I can just swipe left or right, yes, and we match. I don't have to conversate. When I was growing up and I wanted to call a friend or a girlfriend, you pick up the home phone and you make a call and you might have to speak to the parents or the siblings first and have this sort of impromptu conversation. So I would say number one, communication skills. Number two, how do you really build within them confidence and courage and the ability of, hey, I'm feeling a little bit afraid right now, but I'm going to take action. And then a belief system, I would say, is also to instill, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I'm sitting in class, I don't understand what the teacher's saying. I want to raise my hand, but fear of judgment's kicking in, and whether I'm consciously or unconsciously aware of it. So I don't ask a question, but that's how I continue to play through life at times. I've got a great idea and I'm sitting there in a bit of a board meeting, but I don't say anything because that fear of rejection, that little voice kicks in. Being able to adapt, being able to lean in and do hard things.
What's an example of some hard things?
I love you asked this question last week. So when I do some one-on-one coaching sessions, group or one-on-one things, I have some pretty unique ways of helping get cut through. And for this one 17-year-old student that I'm working with, we're looking at building mental toughness. He's wanted to shift and turn his life around too. It's not easy for a young person. So part of that is looking at, we go and do ice baths and sauna sessions together. And I'm not sure if you've done an ice bath before, but as soon as I was doing one 2 days ago, as soon as you sit in there, every part of your body says, get out. It's cold, it's freezing, this is uncomfortable. But how do you learn to have a relationship with that inner chirp, that voice that ticks over in your mind, and quell that voice? And a big thing I think for young people or adults listening to this is your breath is such an amazing regulator. Looking at how do you shift from your sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, I'm activated, I'm freaking out right now, I'm losing my access to my executive function, my rational thinking, my creativity, and right now I'm just freaking. And then your breath is a great way to bring your body back online. Your parasympathetic sort of nervous system, your rest and digest. So I think in those sessions, looking at a creative way of how to do hard things, that would be part of it. The other thing I would say is go and pick up something you've never done it before. Often there's this fear of, hey, what happens if I try and it doesn't work? Can you skateboard?
I can't skateboard. I gave it a crack back in the day. And
how'd you go?
Almost broke my neck.
Yeah?
Probably, yeah.
Have you picked it up again since?
No. Definitely not.
Are you fluent in Mandarin?
I'm not. I'm learning Spanish.
Amazing.
Started about a month ago, yeah. Yeah.
Could you nail it after 1 or 2 sessions?
No way. And it's still frustrating. And I still face that, why the fuck am I doing this? I'm so shit at this, blah, blah, blah. But I've been pushing through because it's something I've been feeling I wanted to do for a long time now.
And see that ability to push through. I think so often we try something once, twice, it's wobbly, doesn't work, we stop. Watching my daughter right now, she's nearly starting to crawl. She's right at that point of crawling. It's hard for her. I can't do it. Imagine if kids just stopped. It's like, walking's too hard. I'm going to stop. And I would say for parents, being able to help encourage, and this is where you're saying around a growth mindset, praise the effort, not the results. Having them do some hard things, whatever that could look like to them. But then I think as parents too, a bit of a tip, conversate with them and find out what the hard things are going on in their life. Because so often they're carrying these things alone. As parents, we're completely oblivious because you're trying to pay the bills. You're working, everything's going on in your world. You're trying to keep a marriage going and everything else. You got probably multiple other kids and pets and everything else. But how do you take that time to really get to check in and find out what's going on in your world, in your child's world? That can provide a bit of a clue into what's next.
Yeah, and we all want to be seen. We all want to be understood, right? And I feel like so many, like I said, parents are so busy. And like I think a lot of our generation, our parents' generation, they're so busy doing a million things at once. They don't have time to really connect and sit down with you. They're just putting food on the table, chucking it down, and everyone's saying, how's your day? And that's about it. No one's really digging any deeper. So I think our generation is a bit more, I guess, emotionally aware, emotionally intelligent. So hopefully parents these days are just trying to dig a little bit deeper, show a little bit more love and care for their kids. Like you said earlier, just write them a little note in their lunch. Like I think our generation is doing a much better job at that. You mentioned your daughter before. So I want you to tell us how being a father has changed you.
I became a dad when I was 32. I still probably didn't feel ready. And there was a part of me that still wanted to go and travel to a few countries. Had my eyes on Peru and South America and taking Beck over there. And a part of me that was always, hey, maybe in a year or two. But there was something, Jeff, about, I still remember when Chloe was born and we didn't know what we were going to have, and it was a surprise. And had this really amazing birthing experience, and Beck, it was just phenomenal to watch her deliver little Chloe. I had this water birth in North Sydney, and having a chance to hold her for a first time and high on adrenaline, it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I remember I went home to sleep for a couple of hours, and Beck's out and she's healthy and well, and Bubs was healthy and well. And I tried to sleep for maybe 30 minutes. I was like, I've just become a dad. I can't sleep, like I'm buzzing. I've had no sleep for almost 48 hours, but I'm flying. And I drove back to the hospital, and Beck passed Chloe, and she was exhausted and she fell asleep. And holding this little human, as her eyes were just so sort of vague looking up at me, and she fell asleep holding my finger. And man, someone must have been cutting onions, because the tears started trickling down my face. And I was like, I get it. I get it now. Like, this is what it's all about. Something where I think at times I could still be quite selfish. And I don't think I fully nailed that yet, but I'm like, there's something here. It's so much bigger than me and so much more important, and someone that I want to live for and create a really amazing life for and work hard for and provide and nurture. She's the most special, incredible little bundle of joy that I feel so blessed to call my own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say as a father of 2 daughters as well, my firstborn, holding her in my hands for the first time, there's no other word for it but like gobsmacked. Like I just felt like, that adrenaline and just that joy. I'm sure every parent feels, but that's a special moment, and it's completely life-changing.
Yeah. How good's being a girl dad?
Oh, I love it, mate. I'm a double girl dad, and so it's incredible. A lot of famous girl dads out there, mate. The Rock. Who else do we have? Kobe Bryant.
Really?
R.I.P. Yeah, he was a girl dad as well. So a lot of famous ones out there, bud.
Okay.
Tell me, Matt, when was the last time you surprised yourself?
There might have been a moment yesterday. For any parents or aspiring parents, you might choose to do this, or if you're already, it's your choice. But I had this goal of wanting to create this scrapbook for Chloe that I'll give her when she's about 13, and little diary entries and writing about her birth and just special little moments of our story together. And I think right at a point in her life where things can be pretty tricky, that she's got this as a bit of an anchor in her life, and just speaking words of life into her. And I've had that book, the scrapbook. I've had some entries that I've wanted to include, but I've held off for months. And yesterday I finally pulled the trigger, and I sat there for hours and just started writing sort of the first page of what I want to share with her, imagining and trying to envision her as a 13 or 15-year-old young woman, everything that would have gone on in her life. And I think the surprise part came in when I wrote, I could write really honestly why I'd held off starting. And the reason was words almost fail me when I think of how incredible she is and what can I write in here that feels perfect enough to describe the love that I have for her, but realizing that it will be imperfect. And as a parent, I'll be imperfect and I'll drop the ball. And hopefully this book serves as a bit of a reminder when we do our very best and we still might upset you or frustrate you or annoy you. You are loved, you're enough, you're worthwhile, you are precious, and you're our daughter. So, yeah.
Man, that's so beautiful. And it actually reminded me to the activity that our school did when we were in year 12. When you talk about building connection with your children, and they had our parents write us these beautiful letters as we were sort of about to finish year 12. And, it's something I get emotional about. I think it was one of the most amazing, vulnerable states that I've seen either of my parents in, and definitely would have loved more of that growing up. I mean, so why do we have to wait till they're turning 18 to be doing that? So having something like that they can start when they're 13. I've started writing letters to my daughters on each of their birthdays.
Beautiful.
Right, something that they can go back and read what life's like at 1, what life's like at 2. So these little rituals I think are important. And if you are a parent listening, think about how you can sneak in a little bit more connection. It might not be now, like when they're 3, Hallie's not going to be reading a birthday card about how much I love her and what she means to me. But one day she'll have a look and she'll be able to see how I was feeling about being a dad and how much they meant to me when they were at a certain age. So
I think it's to, Jeff, I hope you and I live 90, 100 plus. My nan's 101 this year, but like I'm sure you have, I've also had some of my best mates that have had to bury at 30. I had the privilege of, sort of helping carry him and have his sort of the coffin on my shoulder. And I think for parents, next decade, few decades aren't guaranteed, and to have something there stored up where you can share some of these memories and moments with them. God forbid something happens to you, it lives on. Because there's teens that I work with all the time that have 1 or 2 photos with dad or mum, and that's all they've got. And there's no real stories or memories. But I think a book like this it lives on or outlive you, hopefully.
That's special, mate. That's special. So I love asking this. It's a little bit of a funny one, but if you could have a beer dead or alive with anyone, who would it be?
A beer with anyone dead
or alive. A beer could be a coffee, mate. Whatever you're vibing at the moment.
Yeah. And I'd probably say someone like Jesus.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and he might have a water, or we could have waters, and we might start with a wine too. You turn it into water, or into wine. And I share that because at that sort of that shift as a 19-year-old, faith became quite a big part to help me navigate out. And I'm on a journey with my faith at the moment, but yeah, there's so many, I think, teachings that I see within Christianity when you strip back religion, but the purest part of, parts in that book and some of his teachings, I think that's pretty profound and a pretty cool way to live.
Yeah. I like that, man. Jesus, that's a new one for me. I like that one. Tell me about any rituals you have.
Before Chloe, it was quite different. We've got a little nocturnal hour at the moment, but most mornings when they're done right, I start with a 5-minute journal or a performance planner by Brendan Bouchard and get clear on that sort of day that I want to have. It really works well when I start the night before and I'm clear on what am I going to do for that day or even the week ahead. If I can exercise, and most mornings I do, try to get to the gym, I'd say for sort of 5 times a week. If I'm staying close to the ocean, I'm in some sort of water first thing also, and love a coffee. Love the smell of coffee, maybe a couple of hours after. Rituals, get out and have some sunlight in the morning. Big fan of Huberman and some of those sort of biohacking techniques. And getting clear on the sort of day that I want to have, I start with a green juice. Other rituals, something Beck and I do, and I think it's great for any couples listening to this, but just taking time to check in and probably once a month, every 6 weeks when it feels like we need to have it, the 3 questions that we ask each other. What's something I've done lately that you appreciate? What's something that you've wanted to say but felt like you haven't had the time or been able to? And what's one thing you want a little bit more of? I think those little rituals, if I think of our relationship and the love and the spontaneity and we're having so much fun as parents, where we're running on minimal sort of sleep at the moment, but there's so much love and respect and nurture and care there. And I think little rituals like that help go a long way.
Yeah, that's nice. You know, we talk about connecting with our children, connecting with your significant others, super important as well. I feel like that could be from the Gottman. Have you heard about the Gottman?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like there could be the Gottman, some Gottman questions because I've looked into that stuff. How does Matt Cogin deal with setbacks?
Evaluate, I think, sit with, acknowledge that it's happened. In the moment, like any other human, especially if it means something to you, you're in the feels. I'm disappointed, I'm discouraged, I'm frustrated. But then choosing, how do I choose to see this? Can I reframe it as this is an obstacle or an opportunity? That's when it's done well. That's when it's done well. And I don't always, I think, handle it well. How do I deal with setbacks? I've intentionally put about me like a tribe of people that I can reach out to, some dear friends. I've got mentors, people that I can bounce things off my partner. And I think at times seeking wisdom and counsel from those people has been really helpful. Yeah, that in a nutshell, that would be it.
Okay, I like that. You mentioned, you know, your struggles through high school, drugs, you know, drug addiction, dealing. If you could give advice to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
Someone else's opinion of you doesn't have to become your reality. You'll be all right and you'll land on your feet. Back yourself. Remember not to take yourself so seriously. Practice gratitude, smile often. Give your parents a big kiss and cuddle often because they're two of the greatest rocks in your life, and let your little brother know how incredible he is because he's pretty special. Be quick to make amends and apologize. You don't always have to be right. And probably one of the biggest things I would say to myself, and I try to share with young men when I run workshops, is even when a relationship doesn't work, try and do your best to leave people better off than you found them. Because, I don't think I've done that very well throughout life. And it's something that I wish I could have done differently. And if I think of regrets, there's not a whole lot. I have a few, for sure I have a few, but that would probably be one of the bigger departments of things I would have liked to have changed if I could.
That's very wise advice, mate. Now can you tell us what's the best piece of advice you've been given and who is that from?
Loving the questions.
Thanks,
You remind me a bit of Tim Ferriss. I'm not sure if anyone's ever said this.
Mate, I think I've had that before, funnily
Yeah.
enough. Yeah, some Tim Ferriss vibes, mate.
He's an amazing podcaster. But
yeah, he was one of the first I ever started listening to, I think, back in the day. Old Timmy. I haven't listened to him for a long time, but yeah, he's the GOAT, one of the GOATs.
He's amazing. Yeah, agreed. Best pieces of advice.
Yeah, a lot of these questions are probably from these guys that I've watched for years and years and years, you know, so.
And I said it earlier on, but it's something that when I look at evaluations and what students take from workshops, it's often up there. I've seen some students that have shared that they've put it in their bio on social media, but that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. I think that's so layered, and when you unpack that, it's a pretty cool way to go about life. It's a way I try to live my life as much as I can. And I think it was an NFL or hockey coach that coined that term for the first time. I'm sure the NBA and everyone else has rehashed it.
Yeah, I thought it was a Jordan one, but I think it might have been, I don't know, Wayne Gretzky, hockey
Someone.
guy might have said that. Jordan got his jersey right behind you on the wall there, mate. A huge, huge fan over here. But yeah, it's 100% spot on the ball. So tell us, are there any bad habits that you're trying to break at the moment, and what would they be?
Scrolling.
Yeah, mate, me too. That's top of my list constantly. blessing and a curse, social media, right?
Yeah.
Great tool, but also I don't know many people who wouldn't want to spend less time on their phone. So what are you doing to try to battle that sort of doom scrolling need?
Yeah, like I'd say scrolling, and then also just this almost conscious / unconscious part of like checking my email. So like as a business owner, and it's the double-edged sword of, it's been a great way to using LinkedIn and Instagram to promote my business and generate more work, sending out emails and reaching out to different people and hustling, as we sort of talked about earlier on. At the same point, I'm checking it way more than I need to be. I'm on my phone a lot. I'm scrolling, and what I'm finding is helping is being able to identify when of the times I'm more likely to scroll. I'm exhausted. I've had a massive day of delivery. I'm tired. I'm running on fumes. And if Beck's getting bubs down, I might just be sitting there mindlessly sort of scrolling. But what has helped was the Friday before last, intentionally saying I'm not touching my socials. I'm not touching my emails for the whole day. And it got to about 4 or 5 p.m. And I was like, I'm going to have so many emails there. And there's people I need to get back to. And I logged on and there was nothing there. I was like, wow. And I think it was actually Tim Ferriss that said he intentionally only checks his emails, maybe from like 10 or 11 a.m. onwards, and for like an hour a day. And I think having some guidelines, I've actually got things on my phone too, where after being on social media for half an hour, I'll sort of drop it. And then I have to go in and so that. And just, again, getting Beck's support at times. We help check each other because it's so easy. You get the kid down and then we're both laying in bed sort of scrolling.
Yeah. That's why. That's one of the reasons why I started learning Spanish, because I was like, I'd get the kids down, I'd clean up the house, and I'd just sit on my phone. I'd read a little bit before bed, but I'm like, I'm not going to sit on my deathbed going, I wish I was scrolling more. I wish I would learn another language. So I spend 30 minutes a night. While I'm doing it, I'm also stretching as well. So I'm like sort of maximizing my productivity.
Nice.
And it's just been awesome. So 30 minutes less on my phone, doing something that's going to build my brain and
habit stacking there too. That's cool.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Matt, that's the end of the show. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you, mate. Very inspiring person. If anyone wants to check you out or check out your business, how can they find out more about you?
Levelingup.com.au would be a place to start. The website should be launched in the next couple of weeks. Instagram, Matt Cogin. LinkedIn is probably the place to sort of see a few of the stories and what I'm getting up to. And would love to connect if you're interested. But thanks for having me, mate. And really love being on the podcast.
It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Wise words from our guest over here. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So get out there today, try something that you've been, putting off. And if you like the show, share it with a friend. Don't forget to give us a like. We will see you next time. Peace out. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Thank you, bro.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.